Family, welcome to another episode of Financial Freedom. I am Derek, and your accompaniment and host on this journey. Look, y'all have been with us for a good long while now. We started in March 2020. We started in the midst of a pandemic, trying to inspire and inform. And after 45 million views from around the world, we've gone from one episode and one show to over 35 shows and many episodes. So thank you so much for hanging out with us and supporting us. If you can, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on multiple avenues at the Hope TV. One word, all caps, at the Hope TV. Y'all, we got a gentleman come back to join us again, Mr. Mark L. Dorsey, CPA. Look, he has been educated. He has over 20 years of experience in corporate tax. He does marvelous things. He's worked with the Hope Foundation and Goodwill assisting their entrepreneurship and training programs. He himself has been an entrepreneur since he was 8 years old, and he has a knack for understanding the tax code and being able to explain it and convey it to his customers with amazing precision. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Dorsey.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me again.
Man, you are more than welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being here. I know your time is valuable, so I always try and make sure people know we're appreciative. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Definitely. Look, I'm going to hop right in with a random question that I'm finding from all the internet. I find a lot of people need clarity in this, including myself. These stimulus checks, are we going to wind up paying these back? Or they come out of our taxes? Do I have to worry about a debit on my check? I mean, what's going on?
That is an excellent question, Derek. So the answer to that is the stimulus checks are actually, or were actually, in advance of a credit that you are to receive on when you file your 2020 income tax return. So if you did not receive an actual check for either the first check or the second check, then you would let your tax preparer know that, and then what will happen is that credit will show up. I believe it's on line 30 on your income tax return as a credit towards your taxes, just like your withholding. So in the event of, so if you think about it in terms of like earned income credits, where you're given so much money for having earned income. But so what happened with the stimulus checks, there's a number that's out there based on your filing status and the amount of children that you have and things of that nature that show up on your return. So when that information, when the checks were sent out, they were sent out based on the prior year returns. And then the information as it comes through for 2020, so that those checks were an estimate of what they thought it would be for 2020. So when the checks come, when the amount actually comes through on the 2020 return, that will be, that information will be trued up, if you will.
Okay, so this is just a credit that we were supposed to get on our coming tax return, but they just gave it to us early.
Correct. It's an advance of a refundable
so money
credit.
Back
that is absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay, got you. Also, that 10K that was going, is that free money?
I'm sorry, say that again. The 10K, what 10K?
I said also the 10K that was, yeah, is that free money?
I don't like to use the term free money, but so the $10,000. So what the government did, the federal government has allowed for the first $10,000 of unemployment um, compensation to be not taxed this year.
Mm,
So
okay.
for 2020, so that's not normally the case, but in the midst of the pandemic, the government decided to give taxpayers a break if they were drawing unemployment. And in addition
Gotcha.
to that, some people had to take distributions from their retirement plans, and so that money, what the
Whoa.
government did for that is reduced, they waived the 10% penalty that you would have had to pay on taking a distribution from a retirement plan, and you
Okay.
have the ability to spread the tax that you would have had to that you have to pay on that on the additional income for for that for that distribution. You have the ability to spread that over 3 years, the tax on that for 3 years, and you also have the ability to put the money back into that retirement plan as well
Oh
over a three
wow.
year period.
So okay. So they basically lessened the penalty for using your savings, and then they also gave you, for, if what I hear correct, some sort of credit for the business that wasn't taxed but came from unemployment.
No, no, no. There wasn't credit from the business. It was so the if you received unemployment compensation. So if you received an unemployment check, so it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with the business. So it's like if you received an unemployment check from your local state, then the first 10,000, I think it's 10,500, but it's 10,000 and so or so dollars
Hmm.
from a tax perspective is not taxed from it's not considered to be taxable income. So if you
Hmm.
have an unemployment compensation of like $12,000, the first 10,000 and some change is not taxed, but the rest of it is.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this. It seems to be that there's a lot of stuff going on with our money, our taxes, with the stimulus. If you own a small business, if you're a solopreneur, or if you own an LLC, but you have a small board, as an average person who is trying to do his best to get by, to pay his taxes like he should, to do the things he should do, how much do I really need to know about this tax system? And if I need to know a lot, where do I go?
Again, my answer is going to be a little biased, but I would suggest that you hire a tax professional to assist you with this. And the reason I say that is because there are changes. The government is making changes literally to the tax code, not the tax code, but they're making changes to tax rules and things and regulations literally on a daily basis, especially in the midst of this pandemic. So, for instance, the PPP loan, when it first came out, well, the first of this year, they were stating how the um, they had one set of parameters for the second draw for the PPP, and
Right.
literally during the middle of tax season, um, the whole the rules changed and the amounts doubled, and there's a whole
Wow.
bunch of other things that happened, and this happened literally overnight. So everything is constantly changing. So if you're trying to run a business, Derek, and you have normal things that you have employee issues, you have customer issues, you have sales and marketing issues, and just everything that goes along with running a business.
Right.
There's no way in the world that you will be able to stay on top of all of that,
Right.
as well as understand everything that's going on in the literally the day-to-day changes that happen from on the administrative side of the table. So that's why is very important to have someone in your corner that understands that stays abreast of these things for you.
I was super excited to find out that Sound Mind wanted to address this particular issue when it comes to our children and their feelings. I recommend as a therapist that it's so important for the parent, the guardian, the foster parent, whoever, to make sure that you're present. And I don't mean just in the room, but pay attention.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I work in the #1 cable news network in the #1 market in the nation, and I'm the only full-time African-American woman in my newsroom. Being inspired is really saying that at the end of the day, no matter what's happening in my world or around me, it's bigger than me.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a couple scenarios, and I want your opinion here. If I'm
Okay.
doing it's a small consulting business, let's say I'm doing counseling, or I'm doing business consulting for other small businesses, or something where I'm the sole one who's doing everything as far as creating. Um, how much should I be paying a CPA? Should I be really, coming out of my pocket for a CPA?
Um,
Did you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to think how to answer that. So the best way to answer that is the question. I guess the question is, how much information do you want from that CPA? How much,
Mm,
how much value do you want them to provide? Do you want to have them as an advisor to help you understand things before you make decisions, or do you want to have them as a vendor where you just show up and say, hey, here are my taxes, prepare my taxes, or here's my my payroll, I need you to prepare my my payroll returns and file them for me. So, if you have them, the person as a vendor, then you probably you probably won't pay them too much, because you're just having them, basically you're having that CPA act as basically an order taker. Like, okay, here's some information, I need you to process it and then file the returns, or file this or file that. Or even
got
if you have them working, even if you have them working on your books, and you say, hey, here's my information, I need you to prepare financial statements for me, and then so they go in, they prepare the financial statements, and they give it back to you. Okay, that's great. But if you have them as an advisor, so now that person tells you, um, these are the things that you should be look. So here are your financial statements, or here are your tax return documents. These are the things you should look at. This is what you should do. Maybe you might want to move. Um, you might want to consider changing the way that your business is structured so that you won't have to pay so much in taxes. Or you may want to do something else, maybe consider setting up a different entity to help shelter taxes, or to even help, um, to set yourself up so you can do other things. Or maybe you need to, you want to do, you might, so like you might want to have one line of business, and you might want to get into a different line of business. And depending on what that is, you may need to, have a different entity, or you might be able to collapse some entities, or what have you. But this is where having an advisor comes in handy, because what happens if you don't have those conversations with a CPA, then you know when the time comes to actually file an income tax return, you're left with a bill, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, what is this bill for, and how can I
Right.
reduce it? Well, once the year closes, it's not a lot that can be done in order um, to 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 reduce your income taxes. However, if you have those conversations throughout the year, you can now make different moves throughout the year and put some of these pieces in place so that you can go ahead and make those decisions. Again, having the information and doing things beforehand as opposed to after the fact.
I think you mentioned something about this in our last conversation. You said something like,
Mhm.
if you're trying to get to make a basketball team or a football team, you don't go to the coach after you've already made it and say, "Hey, how do I get to the next level?" You talk to the coach along the way.
Going back to that example. So if you take, for instance, this one gentleman we know that he tried out for the basketball team, he didn't make it. He went to the
Mhm.
coach and said, "Hey, coach, I'm the best player that's out there. Why didn't I make the team?" Well, the coach told him, said, "Hey, um, he said, yeah, he says you didn't make the team because of X, Y, and Z. But I'll tell you this: if you try out next year," he said. So what the coach told him, said, "I tell you what, if you make, I'll make a deal with you. If you show up with me every morning at 6 a.m. before school and work out and practice with me, I will guarantee you a spot on the team next year." He said, "If
Mhm.
not, I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to end up with the same fate next year as you did this year." So this gentleman took the coach up on his offer and showed up and
Okay.
worked out with the coach every day before school at 6 a.m. He ended up making the basketball team.
Right.
So again, that's a clear cut example of you hire the coach in order to get to the level you want to be at, as opposed to trying to get there on your own and then going and talking to the coach. And it's the same thing here with finances. I talk to my clients about a number of things, and I make sure that they have wills in place. I have make sure that they have bankers in place, attorneys, um, insurance people, you name it. I make sure that they have it. And that's just not something that you're going to find. Those are questions that are not going to be asked, generally speaking, when you're dealing with a tax preparer, because they're not really concerned about you and your company well-being for the long term. Their main concern is in, out, tax return, um,
Right.
tax return, refund, see you later.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this question because you brought this up earlier. Um, when it comes to filing your taxes later in the year, do amendments to our tax returns hurt us? Do they flag the IRS that something is wrong? If you have to make changes or something like that late in the game, is that a problem?
That is not a problem. I would say so. I wouldn't say it's a problem, but what I would say is anytime you have to amend a return, you need to make
Hmm.
sure that everything that you have in that return is spot on, because that does reopen your audit window. So, meaning if you filed a return, so this is 2020, I mean 2021, we filed in the 2020 returns. So let's say you file a return now, and typically the audit window closes theoretically in 3 years, 3 to 6 years, right?
Okay.
But if you decide to amend a return, that opens up the audit when that reopens that statute of limitations in which the IRS can audit you.
So and
And
help
so
me
that
out right there. What exactly is an audit? Does that automatically mean you did something wrong, or Does that mean they're just questioning your finances? What exactly is an audit? And I think you're about to answer the next question, which is how do we avoid it?
Right. So an audit basically is so if you think of it in terms of grade school or high school even, when you turn in your test, the teacher grades it,
Right.
right? And so they're looking for the right answers, wrong answers. And that's basically what an audit is so once you you file your return,
Mm-hmm.
at some point the IRS has the ability to go in, has the they can go in and look at that return to see if the numbers, and first of all they're going to see if everything that was reported to the IRS on your behalf, if
Mm-hmm.
all of those numbers are included on that return, and then
Right.
they're going to look at everything else to see that to make sure that the numbers make sense.
Okay.
Now if some things seem or look funny, then they may then do what they call a compliance audit, which is when they'll send. I'm sorry, not a compliance audit, a field audit, where they'll um, send you a letter saying, please explain the numbers that you put on line 3, 5, and 7, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So they'll want you to explain those numbers and probably provide support for those numbers that you have there.
Okay.
So that's how the audits, the simple audits go.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, and that's good to know, because I mean I've personally never been audited, but I've always heard the fear behind people's voices when they do get audited. But but let me ask you this: me and my friends call it castration because we feel like we get hit the hardest when it comes to taxes. Like if you're a single person and you don't have any kids, we castrated every single time we see our check. Or um why do we get hit the hardest when it comes to taxes?
Well, it's not necessarily that you've been hit the hardest. Think about this, right? So, like, what the government tries to do is they attempt to be fair, and so when I say they attempt to be fair, meaning think about it. So, if you're a single person, you have just
Right.
yourself to care for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Right.
so your standard deduction is going to be, well, let's just call it $12,000, right?
Okay. Okay.
Now, if you are a single person, and so when in your paycheck, they're withholding funds from your paycheck at a certain rate, whatever that is, depending on how
Mm-hmm.
you completed your W-4, they're
Right.
withholding funds from your paycheck at a certain percentage rate. Now that percentage rate
Right.
doesn't change whether you're making $20,000 or $200,000. That percentage rate really doesn't change. It's the same amount of money.
Okay.
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 Now, if you are a single person and you have 2 kids,
Okay.
your standard deduction is going to be like $18,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and if you file that way on your income tax on your W-4, so they're going to withhold money from your paycheck at a different rate. And here's the reason why. If it costs you, $2,000 a month to live, the single person with 2 kids, it's not going to cost them $2,000 a month to live. They have 2 kids. They have 2 kids they have to feed, they have to clothe, they have to do all of these other things for, right? So they need a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more assistance. So yes, it seems like you are getting a break. Well, it seems like the person with kids is getting a break, but I trust and believe that the break pales in comparison with the amount of money that they actually have to spend to take care of those kids.
Okay.
We are talking about pioneer women and women who are blazing the path for all of us.
I started this campaign with a prayer and a plan. and I just worked that plan. God saw fit to predestine me for this position. I'm honored that the community, they listened to what I had to say, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be a pioneer.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
So, so when I'm getting approached in the Kroger parking lot by the guy who's trying to sell me some dependents for this tax season, which
Right.
which actually happened, by the way,
I'm sure.
that that that's clearly that's the wrong thing to do for taxes. So let me ask, what are some common deductions or write-offs or tax breaks that a lot of people just look over? I mean, there are so many schemes and things that people do to get out of paying taxes or to get a tax return. Are there any tax breaks or credits that people tend to look over that are actually very much worth looking into?
Um, that could be that. I mean, it could be a number of things. For instance, like I've seen people that file returns that purchased homes, and they missed some additional deductions that they missed deductions when they purchased a home. They didn't include um, the real estate taxes. I've seen people that have purchased investment property and they didn't include all the deductions that they were entitled to for the entitled to on the investment property. Um, but in a lot of times that those numbers can be huge. I think this one couple, I may have mentioned this before, but this one couple that came to me, they had an investment property. Mind you, they purchased a property in California, but they I reviewed their return
Right.
that they had prepared professionally by another company, and this return they overpaid their income taxes by about $50,000 um, because the person that prepared it wasn't familiar with the various deductions and things that were available to them um, for investment properties. So it just, I mean, it's not really it's hard to say uh, what's normally missed because it depends on who's preparing the return and the type of return. And another thing that I like to caution people with is you have to be careful when comparing your results to your friends' results or your neighbors' results as far as their income tax returns are concerned, because no two tax returns are identical. While both of you may work um, at the same company, you can be single and with no kids and have one result, whereas this other person could be single but they have a dependent a parent that they're caring for. They may have investment property and some other things that go into factor, go in and to factor into the results of their return that you have, even though on the surface the two of you have the same situation, but the other person could have some other things going on. And then and at the same time, this other person could have went out and purchased those kids too. So they're going to receive a different result as well.
Right. Let me ask though, because part of what you said was the other person may not have had, like when you're talking about the houses and stuff like that, their tax preparer may not have known to ask those questions. So I find a lot of times we wind up coming into great people just by word of mouth. So how do I know that this person who has got back this great tax return or whatnot just doesn't have a better tax preparer than me that I may want to look
Right.
into?
Yep, and that's a very good question. I would say to go back to um, looking at the credentials of the person that's preparing the returns.
Okay.
You want to I call it alphabet soup, if you will. You want to make sure that the person has an EA or CPA or a master's in taxation. They need to have some professional credentials behind their name, to state that, oh, well, I'm certified to prepare taxes. There's no such certification to prepare taxes. So literally, a you can literally be a an electrician. So let's say you are an electrician today, and you decide, you know what, um, I'm just going to go prepare taxes because they make a lot of money in a short period of time. So you go hang a sign, you go to the Secretary of State, you go get your EIN, you do all the things you need to do to legally create a business, hang your shingle, and then tomorrow you're now a tax preparer, and you can take a course from a number of different tax preparer schools, and now you are a certified tax preparer, but that doesn't really mean anything. So so now you're hanging your shingle, and you're preparing income taxes for a slew of people, and you have no real formal training outside of this certification class that you got, taking class three, at night, 3 hours a night, two nights a week for like 3 months, and now you're
Okay.
preparing taxes.
So basically, make sure this person is outside of some random independent tax preparing body school.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
And
Make
so
sure
and
the
here's
alphabet soup.
here's another example. Like, so I had a young lady. She was going somewhere to have her tax prepared, and then, or she may have been doing it herself. So, but then she called me because she wanted to, you know, she was trying to figure out how to, settle with the IRS and do some other things, and she didn't understand why she kept owing and everything else. So I sat down with her and I had a conversation with her. The conversation I had, we looked at everything, and I looked at why she was owing and everything that was going on. So when everything was said and done, I helped her, restructure her paycheck. I also helped her with her her finances. And so now she's in a better position, and now she's able to save money and put money towards her future, um, and pay her taxes and make sure that her tax bills are paid, her prior tax bill is paid. She doesn't end up owing a whole bunch of money for the current year, and she's still able to save money and do some other things. So I did all of this with the same paycheck that she had coming in the door, and that's just not something that that's something that you don't get, that you won't understand, um, because again, she couldn't do that because she doesn't do that every day. She doesn't know the different tricks and things that are able to be done even with her own money that she has, because that's not what she does every day. She does, she has a different job, she does something else. So that is, that's the benefit of having someone that does this, and this is all that they do in your corner, as opposed to trying to figure it out.
Got you. Well, look, tell us where we can find you so I can come get my finances saved and baptized in your holy wisdom. And let me know. Let us know.
Let the church say amen.
I know, right?
My website is www.dorseycpa.com, and I think my LinkedIn information is down below, and the number to the office is 404-459-4174.
4174. Just want to make sure they heard it. Got you.
That
Good
is correct.
sir. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I'll be coming to find you because there may be a couple conversations I gotta have. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you for having me, and I'm always glad to come back at any point in time.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been your episode of Financial Freedom, talking about taxes, trying to get that money right. Thank you for joining us, and as always, be safe out there.
Have a good day.